Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I'm thrilled and super grateful to have the wonderful Sherry Gideons. She's a transformational speaker, coach, author, and she's just an all-around fantastic human being. I'm so happy that you are here with us today, Sherry, because people need to hear about your incredible story and, of course, what power, passion, and purpose mean to you.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I've been so enthused all week about being part of this. You know, it's in alignment with everything that I am. So thank you.
When we connected, it was like two little girls that were just like super excited, and we had a lot of things in common. But what I found really remarkable is the fact that you've had a near-death experience. And anytime somebody has something like that, it's usually extremely transformational. So it doesn't surprise me that you're in the line of work that you're in.
Well, it starts out for me with the pro bodybuilding industry. I came up during the evolution of the 80s, of the very fast evolving muscle-bound industry for men and women. But in the case of women, the industry evolved around how much muscle should a woman actually have. And myself already being a perfectionist, and I was raised by a father who gave love based on how well you achieved, what you would call success or, high achievement in life. My mindset at the time was very structured around trying to meet up to the expectations of the world. And so I was trying to be this perfect model of the perfect body, the perfect person. And in my particular case, I struggled with low self-concept, low self-esteem, the whole not enough, not good enough, not worthy type of belief system. And so fast forward into the 90s, here I am at a particular place in my life where I had gotten to the belief system that the only way for me to truly meet up to the world's expectations was to not eat at all. And of course, at that particular time, I had fallen into the path of steroids and other sports enhancement drugs in order to what I thought at the time, live and into being that perfect self. And what I discovered was I ended up having a massive heart attack and dying. And that's how my near-death experience resulted.
There's a variety of addictions, and I myself had fallen into that working out and really having that perfect body, and got really extreme with my eating and even fell into bulimia.
And so very much like yourself, I had the bulimia, I had the anorexia, I had, the illusion going on that there was, nothing wrong. And ultimately I was, 78 to 80 pounds and I was a skeleton. And so one night I had this massive heart attack, and it was in this experience that I was released from the flesh. And this experience, how do you describe it? It's perfect love beyond human understanding. It's oneness with everything all at once, meaning that if you want to call God, your higher power, infinite intelligence, the universe, all of it is you. You become it all at once. So there's no separation. There's no gap between time and space. There's just you as it, meaning you know everything. You are the birds, the trees, the flowers, the air that we breathe. You are everything all at once. And you are lifted up in ascension as if you are walking on water. That's how magnificent, how amazing. And if you want to call it heaven, it is heaven beyond belief. And I have the chills as I'm describing.
I know, I literally am too. I was like, oh my gosh.
So my near death was so deep that, in the short time we have here, it's always so difficult to express the depth of all of it. But I was surrounded by thousands of spirits. And, we talk about our soul group. Now we talk about it. At the time for me, I'm surrounded by my soul group. I'm surrounded by archangels. I'm surrounded by other, spirits. People who had passed over. We talk about our family members and stuff like that. I'm surrounded by my family members, and they're all communicating to me and they're all sharing with me this embodiment of love. So, when we talk about this embodiment of love, it's so intense and so amazing. And so in this particular case, I was told that I was being shown over what I had given while I was in physical form. So meaning everything I gave. If I gave love, if I gave joy, if I gave hate, if I gave judgment, if I stole, whatever I gave in physical form, I got to re-experience through all I had given too. So if it was you, if you and I were at somewhere in our experience and whatever I had given, I got to feel through you as if I was within you. I got to feel the contrast. I'm in my mid 50s, and I came during that time in humanity where it was very dogma oriented society, and it was very judgmental, and it was a fear-based society around separation. So the choices that we made, it was internalized in a fearful way. Oh my God, if I do something wrong, it's a sin and something's going to come and get me. So when I was released from the body and now I'm being given this experience, this gift in the way that I was, and then I was told that I was just being shown over, that nothing judges me, is that, or you, we re-look, we review from a place of understanding. And so nothing is judging us. And the beautiful part about this experience as well is then I was told that I was being shown that which I had not yet finished. What I had chosen, when you talk about choice, what I had chosen in this lifetime to potentially fulfill. So I was shown those experiences from the highest Sherry, the Sherry that had already accomplish those things. Because remember, there's no gap between time and space.
It's hard for people to comprehend that sometimes, but it's as if your divine destiny has already been laid out, and all of the most perfect obstacles and challenges and jobs and relationships and parents and all this stuff, whether you want to look at it from a positive perspective or not, it's all in alignment to help you sort of unravel and fulfill and birth and bloom your fullest potentiality, like you were saying. And that's where free will comes into play in this lifetime.
Well, the beautiful part is the gift is that I have nothing that you don't have yourself, and each one of our audience members and guests. Everything that I'm speaking about right now is yours as well. And that's what was also shown to me. Is so besides being shown the potential purposes that I chose to come back in for, I was also had downloaded into my consciousness who each and every one of us is, the capacity we have to create anything, the magnificence that each and every one of us is. And so, when I very first had this experience, one of the things that had been said to me in the light as well was that I never had to worry, that all the right people would show up at the right moment to help me move forward. And so once all this was given to me, I was given the choice to rest and the choice to decide if I wanted to stay or I wanted to come back and finish the potential purposes I had chosen. And so obviously I chose to come back. And the last thing that was said to me as I descended back into my dead body was, and you must help the world to understand that they must give of themselves freely without expecting, and love is all there is. And oh my God, let me just say this. When I came back into the body, I finally saw myself for who I was for the very first time. Prior to the near-death experience, I didn't see, the 78 to 80 pound skeleton. I saw a very fat, obese woman that wasn't good enough. And now I come back into the body and I'm vibrating from a frequency of pure love. I see this ray of light, this bright aura of love. I see myself for who I truly am. And the crazy thing about the experience is I was told to tell, but here's the thing. I said earlier, there's no gap between time and space. I didn't realize at the time, yes, free will comes into play. And so I didn't realize that I wasn't going to be that version of Sherry Marie Gideons that day, that I had to release and let go of all these beliefs and these concepts and these opinions that other people had placed upon me, that I had allowed other people to place upon me, and that I had taken on and owned as my truth.
Those are the sandbags and the shackles and the chains that none of us even see, these invisible ties that are bounding us and, keeping us limited and small and in a place of pain and suffering. Like you said, it's like this torture. And in like that, all of that shit just fell off of you, sister. You were like, oh. And that's why I love so much that you brought up worry. All these, I call them, there's booby traps in life that rob you of your energy, that literally suck light from the cell. And worrying and complaining and comparing and regretting and lying and all of these things, they now know, they have the science and the way to measure that these things truly are impacting our wellness. And for me, that was so empowering to know that if I nurture my mental and emotional and spiritual well-being, how I'm being is impacting my well-being. And when I learned that those three things of self is impacting the flesh, that for me was that was all I needed to know. So at that point for me, it was about how can I be a disciplined disciple of unconditional love? And in order to master that, one must seek to understand it on every level.
The last 23 years of my life have been very much about what you're speaking about. It's about releasing, it's about surrendering, because it takes practice. And, the greatest gift in the journey for me around the practice, one has been desire, the desire to be this woman, the desire as I got clearer and clearer about what I wanted and the impact and the passion and the power and the love that I wanted to share from within me. Because you mentioned it earlier, it's about beingness, and it requires us to be clear about who we are and what we want to be in the world and how we want to impact the world into rising up and stepping into this greater, grander idea of themselves. But it starts with you. Because one, you said you can't change anybody else. It requires you to grow. It requires you to embody this and be this in yourself first, because as you grow that, you begin to shine this light, this essence, this aura, this vibration and frequency that is in alignment with all that there is. And so as you share that with other people, they begin to tap into that in themselves, because they couldn't even show up in your experience if they weren't seeking that in themselves.
Your circle of people who you were connected to prior to this knowledge and wisdom that you experienced, what was that like for you? That, because a lot of times when this happens, you're lit, and then it's like, and you seem like this like crazy person.
Well, it was very painful, because you have to realize I'm awakened at a core of pure love. And so I was told to tell. And so I come back into the body and I'm vibrating from this frequency of pure love. And I have all these spiritual gifts now. Awakened spiritual gifts. I have telepathy. I've got clairvoyance. Literally I could be in somebody's presence and I could read their minds. And so I was telling what was coming through me, and the world thought I was nuts. This is 1997. You have to realize that we were approaching Y2K. People thought it was the end of the world. And so here I am, little old Sherry Gideons, coming in with this really deep, deep stuff. And my family, the pro bodybuilding world thought that I was nuts. And so at the time, the pro bodybuilding world created a name for me. And the name was Scary Sherry. And people would leave messages on my answering machine saying, we called to talk to Scary Sherry. And you have to realize, here I'm back in the human side of myself. I've been shown this amazing experience. I've been awakened at the core, and the world is laughing at me, vilifying me, spitting on me, and calling me crazy. Not to mention that at the time I had been involved with the pro bodybuilding world, I also was living with the Italian mafia in Las Vegas. And this is a very, very deep part of the story, because as I was really going through that dark experience, you know, with myself, I was also really wanting more than anything to shed all that and be the real me, the beautiful light that Sherry truly was. And so now the world has totally let go of me. And now I lose every physical possession that I owned, and I end up homeless on the streets with my children. I'm living in the Sequoia National Forest with my children. But remember what I said earlier, that I had been told in the light that I never had to worry, that all the right people would show up at the right moment to help me move forward. So I'm going through these experiences in the moment. And I keep bringing us back to the moment, because the moment is where our point of power is. The moment is where our conscious awareness lies. It's the greatest gift. And so in the moment, someone's showing up. So I'm in the forest, living in a tent, and I overhear somebody in the campsite next to me. And I hear him sharing with a group of men a story of his own near-death experience and how he was transformed. Now, go figure, what are the odds of that, you know? I know, no odds.
Trillion, bazillion, oh my God.
Yep. And the cool thing about it is guess what? He ends up sharing all their food with us. We end up fishing with them. And literally the whole weekend, everything that we needed, me and the kids needed, was supplied to us in those moments. And so at the end of the weekend, he comes to me and he says, listen, you moved me to the next level in my life, and I will be forever grateful for that. He says, here's $15. It's yours. He says, thank you so much. And so these are the experiences that have happened to me over the last 23 years. I mean, great leaders, great masters have shown up in my moments, because I keep tying it back to what you're seeking is always seeking you. So the more that we surrender in the moment and we look at what's showing up, see, the mirror of what's showing up is a piece of you that's seeking to be whole. It's ready to be released and surrendered. And so the mistake or the obstacle that happens for so many of us is when the mirror shows a reflection of something we don't like, we want to attach and respond from the same energy that's showing up in the moment, instead of becoming the observer and recognizing it. Wait, well, you know what? Thank you for showing me what you're showing me, because guess what? Choice. I have a choice right now. I'm that powerful to align with what I really want instead of what I don't want. But I can thank you still for showing me what you're showing me, because that gives me the conscious awareness in the moment to release you, to let you go, to love you, to thank you for showing me what you've shown me. Well, I really want to pull it back to, really helping your guests understand that it's about being easy on yourself. So when you really start to understand that it's today, it's living in today, it's living in the moment, and you take these pockets of time, because remember, growth is, it takes time to let go of. I like to attribute it to an operating system in a computer. And when viruses show up in your operating system, what happens is they duplicate. And so that's the thoughts that are going on inside of you. So as you're giving power to a thought, that thought creates a feeling, and then you give power to the feeling, and it's that feeling that creates the vibration that you begin to own from that thought and that feeling and give power to, that creates the frequency. And that frequency is what is basically energy spreading out, past your body, and becomes your aura, and it connects with the infinite energy that is everywhere present in the universe. And it's like sound waves, it's like music. So you're attracting what you are in the moment, what you're being in the moment. And so that being said, the thing you have to remember is the easier you are on yourself, the more loving you are to yourself and to others. So here's what I really want to say about this is it doesn't matter who or what is showing up in front of you. You want to see from the place that that person is already love. Because when we go back to saying our point of power is in the moment, if your point of power in the moment is projecting what that person's done or who that person's being, that's part of the reason that you're attracting certain people in your experience in the moment. And you have so much power that you can shift that in the moment and see them only as love. See them for their true self, their real self. And what does that do for you? That just, vibrates your frequency, your connection to love and the power that you truly are, the God that you truly are on a greater, grander level. That's grace. That's grace. And so you're bringing grace into other people's lives. And it's not up to you to try and force it upon them. One of the things Oprah Winfrey said to me years ago is she said that she realized on her journey she wasn't here to convince people of their truth, that she asked every single day to be used, use me. And she realized that she was a messenger. All she was doing was giving a message and moving forward. She wasn't trying to convince, she wasn't trying to make it happen. She just said, you know what? This is what I have to say. And she moved on because she knew that when that person was ready in themselves, they would remember her words. And that stuck so deeply inside of me.
It is. It's like, don't underestimate the power of planting a seed. Yep. And I think you also said something really beautiful about, we're not here to convince anybody. I think at first when I started to understand the truth, there were times where I was in conversations and that energy was there. You know what I mean? And now that I've matured and understood things from a even higher perspective, I realize I don't need to do that. And we should never take offense when people don't hear the message or aren't ready to receive it. I think that's another thing. I'm getting a little wiser at knowing when someone has a real high level of resistance and then not trying to sit there. They're building a wall and then it's like, well, let me take it down and say it like this. And they're, well, let me say that's me being controlling. That's me now going into my ego and not being at rest.
Yeah. Well, and I, like I said, I always like to bring it back to the moment because I had a second near death or out of body experience in 2004, delivering twins right before 40. And I always love to tell this story because it ties it back to healing and it ties us back to our power in the moment. And so I literally had a baby that was born without a throat, and she was born with all these other health issues, hemivertebrae in the upper thoracic, hemivertebrae in the lower lumbar. Her throat grew to a box, and her other organs grew to her lungs. And of course, double hernias and all kinds of other genetic issues. And so she's medevac to a hospital to have a throat reconstruction. I'm taken to the Ronald McDonald Charity House and I begin to develop a difficulty breathing. Well, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And so I'm spending a week in this Ronald McDonald Charity House and I know something drastic is wrong with me, but everybody keeps telling me that it's all in my head. Well, fast forward a week later, I end up going into total cardiac arrest, having a massive heart attack and having a second near death. And of course, in this particular experience, I was told, you know who you are, you know what you're meant to do, and you're to go back to the world and share that with the world. And so I come back into my body and I overhear my husband very upset, I want to know what's wrong with my wife. And of course they all walk in at the same time into my hospital room and they tell me that I have 32% heart function, that I'm going to be on my back for 6 months waiting for a heart transplant, and that I will never exercise again. And I said to the doctor, I said, listen, I appreciate your diagnosis of ease in the body. I said, but I've already had a near-death experience. I already know what's capable. I already know what I can do to help heal that, to help recognize who I truly am. And so, of course, at first the doctor said, this is airy-fairy thinking and we need to look at this realistically. But fast forward 3 years later, I walk into his office and he tells me that I was the most amazing woman he ever met, that I had taught him so many things about life, about who we truly are. But what really happened was I never connected to the diagnosis. I literally only aligned with wholeness. So every day I would be from the place that I was already whole, perfect, and complete. I would utilize all of these principles that are universal principles. I would go into my imagination, which is one of our biggest, highest, most powerful mental faculties. And I would imagine my heart pumping perfectly. I would see it in my mind's eye. I would see it in my imagination. I would watch all of the arteries flowing with blood perfectly, oxygen flowing in and out of my lungs. And I would see that every day. Now, how was I being in the physical world? How I was being with is I was holding conversations with people around that wholeness. When people would say, are you afraid? Are you planning your will? Are you doing this or you're doing that? I never let the conversation go in that direction. I always moved the conversation from the place that I was already whole, perfect, and complete. And guess what? I healed to 100%. And they can't show signs of me ever having had any heart attacks now. And once again, I don't have anything you don't have yourself. Woohoo!
Oh my God, again, goosebumps all over, up and down my spine and on my arms. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this. I'm sure you probably are familiar with his work.
I love him.
Oh my gosh, I love him. Dr. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. Dr. Joe Dispenza, like you basically reconstructed your heart. He reconstructed his spine. If right now you're watching this and you are sick with cancer or some type of, you just got some really bad news, research, use your time and energy to find other stories like this, to read books like this, instead of just staying in the world of your mind that really is going to be riddled with fear. And you need to find a way to neutralize that, and people just focus, like you said, we focus more on what we don't want to happen.
Right.
What happens when you focus on what you do want to happen? And in your case, like you said, there was a piece of you that already understood that there's a piece of you that's whole and well. And so now all you needed to do is use the power of your imagination. You've been doing this for such a long time. I can only imagine what your kids are like. They're probably very mindful children.
Well, what the cool part about it is they're really just coming into their own, because you have to realize if everything is energy, when we bring these children into this plane, they're connected into our umbilical cord. That DNA they keep coming forward with because they've chosen us. We've chosen our parents because we truly believe in this lifetime that we can remember who we truly are and the power that we all have. So with these kids, what happens is they come and they repeat very similar patterns and situations and ways of believing. But in this lifetime, I chose that I was no longer going to allow my kids to experience the historical beliefs and the historical ways of being that I had come back for over and over in each lifetime. And so the amazing part about it is recently my son called me, and out of the blue, he said to me, I've come to redeem you. And I had the chills all over me. And he talked to me about the experiences that I had brought him through in his life, and how there were certain moments of anger and resentment and not good enough and not worthy and not deserving. But he likes to call it the program that I kept bringing into his awareness at certain points he wasn't ready to hear. And then there was finally, he had to go through these experiences, and then he kept hearing his mother's words. And his mother kept saying, you create your own reality, that you are your own magnificence, you are your point of power, and that you can choose in any moment to fully embody who you are and own that power. And he said, I redeem you. I redeem you of the historical path. And you know what? It was almost like a reciprocal flow of love. I could feel his heart flowing into my heart, his hope flowing into my heart. And what's really cool about that is what comes to me right now through me that I feel like needs to be said to your audience is the true essence of things is what we call nature. Nature is what we call life. Life is what we call consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Consciousness is what we call God. God is what we call love.
Yes.
And love is the true manifestation of all mankind.
It's such a powerful statement. And it really rings true. I know for some people they might hear that. You'll have to play that back a couple of times. Actually write it down and put it someplace so that you could see it. Say it to yourself at least once a day. We all are here to create the new paradigm, the new program. We all have to heal the old programs in our own individual ways and start holding that new vision within our imagination and in our heart space. I wanted to ask you, your daughter, you had mentioned all the complications she had. How is she doing? I just don't want to leave people hanging because they're probably going to be like, well, what happened to the daughter?
Yeah. So remember I said earlier that when you use your word and it is aligned to your belief and your power and you own it, you can heal anything. And I'm a science of mind spiritual practitioner. And so what I did is I began to speak my word over my daughter. I began to recognize that there was only one source, one power, and that power lived through her as it did me, because we first recognize that in ourselves. And as I began to claim and declare that she was whole, perfect, and complete, that everything in her body was working and operating at its highest capacity with ease and grace, I was in complete gratitude of knowing that there was no gap between time and space. And so as I released my word to the law, to the universe, to God, this higher power, I allowed it to be so. But I only knew that it was so and got out of the way of the how. And literally, we were given the best, highest outcome. And today, you would never know that there was one thing wrong with Haley, not one thing, because she's completely whole, perfect, and complete. And she is a normal kid.
That's such wonderful news. And gratitude is a very powerful vibration, and people tend to only give gratitude when things are going well. But when you start to really get schooled and start to learn the power of gratitude and how to master that in a way where you can give gratitude in your darkest moments, in the storm, which is what you realized when you had your near-death experience. And it was from that point on that you were always giving thanks, no matter what the situation was that you were facing. So thank you so much for being one of those lions out there, really at the forefront, a way shower for what unconditional love looks like, and the power behind it. It's not an accident that you had the 2 NDEs and then you had a daughter with all of these complications, and look what you were able to accomplish. And just like you said, everybody has this capability. It's just us tapping into the deeper knowings of this and accepting and allowing and receiving and believing, and it shall be so.
Well, and the so cool thing about that is I could go on for hours delivering stories to you, but even in another amazing event as my own daughter ended up with leukemia at 27, and she, up until that point, dealt with anger, resentment, frustration, hate towards me, towards a lot of these experiences that I had been through. But she finally surrendered, and she allowed me to be her coach, and she allowed me to take her through all these different, ways of creating the experience of what she really wanted. And so here we are again with another story that she literally healed. She's in remission, and now she's doing really well. She has an amazing husband and an amazing daughter, but it's the same sort of thing. Is, once again, I don't have anything you don't have yourself. It's about, who are you owning yourself as? in the moment? Who are you being in the moment? And I really want to leave all of you with that. The moment is your point of power. The moment is where you make the choice to own who you were going to be and what you were going to be from. And that is what is the cause of what's showing up today. So when you start to shift that and you become aware when you're doing it, you can shift it. Ask yourself the question, what is it I really want? And begin to speak it and declare it. Because when you do that, you shift the vibration upward. You shift it to a higher vibration. And let me tell you something. I am who I am today because I walked through all those experiences, because I can meet you right where you're at. I've been there. I've been married, divorced, drug addicted, bulimic, anorexic, had money, lost money, been obese, walked the streets homeless twice, lived with the Italian mafia. I don't say this because I want you to feel sorry for me. I say it because I know what it's like to feel from that place and create that type of reality for myself. But I also know what it's like to find these pockets of time in today and shift up.
Yes, you have completely figured out how to rise above
Yes.
this lower way of living. And this is why I tell people, heaven is already here. It's even written in the Bible. It's just, you have to have the ability to be able to see it and believe it. And so it's about bridging peace on earth, you know? What are you going to bridge on earth? Hell or heaven? It's up to you. And whatever you decide to do, that's going to impact your wellness. Because when you're hateful and full of anger and regret, it creates inflammation in the body. It creates like this furnace. And Sherry is all about, you know, that holy fire, the fire that purifies, the fire that heals. Thank you so much for all of the beautiful wisdom that you shared. Please let people know how they can connect with you on social media, or if you have a website.
So you can connect with me on my website at sherrygideons.com. You can connect with me on Instagram at sherrygideons. You can connect with me on Facebook at sherrygideons. And I also have a women's community that is Expanded Woman Business Network. And I have a show called The High Vibe Nation, and we're raising the vibrations of the planet and helping everybody to step into that greater, grander expression of who they are.
Oh, I love it so much. You guys have to check it all out. Thank you again, Sherry, for spending some time with us today, and I wish you continued blessings on all of your endeavors.
Gosh, thank you so much, and love to you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Your likes, shares, and follows are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Be sure to catch next week's episode of P3 when we'll meet Abraham Heisler. He is the CEO of Heisler Coaching. You aren't going to want to miss what he has to say about power, passion, and purpose. Till next time, peace be in us.